Hello listeners, welcome to the Kokoro audio story experience. Kokoro is a novel written by Natsume Soseki, a pseudonym for Natsume Kinosuke, one of the greatest novelists of the Meiji period. Soseki's unique experience with both Western and traditional values in literature, among other factors, made him a unique voice in the literature world of his time. Kokoro is another masterpiece of his, exploring and reflecting upon the themes of loneliness and alienation within such a turbulent turn of century where modern and traditional values and realities come to clash. Please enjoy part 1 of Sensei and I. It was at Kamakura during one of the summer holidays when it all began. I was then a very young student. My inn was in a rather out-of-the-way district of Kamakura, and if one wished to indulge in such fashionable pastimes, such as playing billiards and eating ice cream, one had to walk a long way across rice fields. Nevertheless, it was quite near to the sea, which was a delight for swimmers such as myself. The beach was always crowded, and I never ceased to gawk at the sight of the masses of black heads floating in the nearshore waves, bobbing up and down, left and right. Along this noisy and happy crowd, I nevertheless managed to enjoy myself, dozing off on the beach and splashing about in the water. It was in the midst of this confusion that I found him. It was through the gentle steam rising from the bubbling teapots, boiling earthy, herbal concoctions, and the moving crowds of half-naked bodies in the tea house that I first laid my eyes on him. I was in such a relaxed frame of mind that I never should have noticed him had he not been accompanied by a Westerner. The pale skin of the Westerner drew my eyes to the small company, and I was suddenly overcome with the sensation that I had seen him somewhere before. With my curiosity piqued, I returned to the beach for the next few days to find him. He was always aloof, and no matter how gay the crowd around him might be, he seemed totally indifferent to his surroundings. He was always alone. It was during one peculiar incident that I got to interact with this man. I helped him to pick up a pair of spectacles from the sandy ground. The next day, I followed him into the sea and swam after him. The sea stretched, wide and blue, all around us, and there seemed to be no one near us. The bright sun shone on the water and the mountains as far as the eye could see. The dazzling blue of the sky beat against my face, and I felt as though little bright darts were being thrown into my eyes. I was overwhelmed with a sense of freedom and joy and splashed around with him wildly in the sea. It was, I think, on the third afternoon of the day, following our swim together, that he suddenly inquired my length of stay at Kamakura. Becoming suddenly embarrassed and quite flushed, I answered, "I do not know. And you, Sensei?" It was then that I began to call him Sensei. Since then, I've always called him Sensei. Whenever memory of him comes back to me now, I find that I think of him as Sensei still. This has nothing to do with discretion, only habit. And flipping through my diary in my hands, I cannot bring myself to remember him in any other way. September 27th, 1892, Monday. Dear Diary, now that the lectures have begun and the overwhelming excitement and hyperactiveness are gone, I am beginning to settle back into my life as a college senior. I've also started to think about Sensei. I wonder how he is. I'll try to go find him and his address soon. I'll keep you updated. October 1st, 1892, Saturday. Dear Diary, I can't seem to reach Sensei. Sensei had told me that he mostly spends his time indoors. Why is it that he wasn't there when I came to visit? Is he avoiding me because in his mind we aren't that close to begin with? To be honest, I was quite heartbroken when we said goodbyes on the beach. He seemed so polite, distant, when I asked him if I could come and visit. I thought we were quite intimate friends and thus deserved warmer responses. This is unbearable. My interaction with Sensei would always end in personal disappointments. Almost always, anyways. Sometimes Sensei would know that I'd been hurt, and sometimes he seemed not to know. I wish we can become closer friends, and maybe then, with greater intimacy, I would find in him those things I look for. Anyhow, I'll try to find him again next Sunday when I have the chance. Till then. October 9th, 1892, Sunday. Dear Diary, I finally saw Sensei. I almost thought that I'd missed him again for the second time when his maid informed me again of his absence, and I was getting unreasonably resentful and angry for Sensei's seeming disappearance when the maid took notice of the fact that I had prior visited, called, and left my number. She invited who I assumed to be the mistress of the house. A gorgeous lady, really. She kindly pointed me in the direction to the cemetery in Zoshigaya. I needed some exercise from all of that studying, and I might see Sensei, so I started down the road to Zoshigaya. Sensei's wife had told me that Sensei brings flowers to a certain grave in the cemetery every month. But isn't this a peculiar habit? Visiting a cemetery plot as often as once every month? Was it of a close family member? A friend, perhaps? The cemetery was solemn yet tender. The maple leaves fluttered in the wind as I walked down a broad avenue with a tea house at the end. And I, at last, called Sensei walking out of the tea house. Diary, Sensei did not seem delighted to see me. When he did catch a glimpse of me, he was startled and alarmed, like a cat that pounced upon finding an unscrupulous person sneaking up from behind, and when he managed to recollect his calm, he questioned me if his wife had told me whose plot he was visiting. This strange, clouded expression disappeared and was replaced with the usual mask of calm and indifference when I told him that his wife, out of modesty, has not revealed any details at all. The different customs reflected on the tombstones were really quite ironic and amusing. You see, there were tombstones with inscriptions such as Isabella so-and-so next to ones with Buddhist inscriptions. I was casually filling the silence with comments about such inconsistencies when Sensei suddenly interrupted me in a dark, scolding, matter-of-fact tone, accused me of not having thought about death seriously. Well, Diary, at my present age, I'll admit to you that I have not, but why is Sensei so tense? He surrounds himself with a veil of serenity and nonchalance. His dark brown eyes bore nothing but a reflection of the world around him, as if he was only a spectator in his life. As we walked about towards his house in silence, I did not attempt to open up another conversation, yet strangely felt no acute embarrassment. Before we parted, Sensei explained to me that it was a friend of his who was buried there, and would speak of it no further. How dearly must this friend have been for him, Diary, for him to visit him so very often. Well, till the next visit. October 27th, 1892, Thursday. Dear Diary, I visit Sensei regularly now, and I've come to know Sensei and his wife, Shizu, quite well. Sensei has been quiet as always during my visits, but I can't help but notice a strangely unapproachable quality about him, which gives me really an irresistible desire to become close to him. I do not know much of his past, but perhaps because of it, he has distanced himself from the world, literally and metaphorically. He barely leaves the house except to visit his friend's grave. I believe that we have become so much closer with each other because of my personal and unanalytical behaviors when interacting with him. Considering Sensei's character, this is quite the feat. Shizu, on the other hand, is quite beautiful, an ideal spouse, really, when it comes to marriage. Kind, sensitive, and obedient. I've never heard Sensei raise his voice at Shizu, or any signs of arguments or disagreements within the house. I thought for the longest time that they're the happiest couple, until I stumbled upon Sensei rushing out of the house one time during my visit. I had heard raised voices inside and offered to walk with him. Sensei seemed a little bit more talkative than usual, but more melancholy, as shadows of grief darkened his face. He said to me the strangest thing. He grieved that his wife, the most intimate person in his life, will never truly understand him. Diary, I cannot bear to look at the pained restraint in his eyes. I can feel the weight of those words on my shoulders, slowly crushing my back, sinking, dragging me into the ground, 6 feet under. How is it that his experience exerts such a weight on his shoulders? As I thought we would part in silence again, Sensei left me with a warning as we stopped around the corner to his house. The fierce wind pierced through the trees, tearing leaves from its branches and making ghastly, hollow sounds on the pavement. There, at that moment, Sensei warned me of the guilt of love. But diary, what exactly does he mean? He would not tell me no matter how much I pressure him. He is burdened by so much, and just when he starts to open up to me, he stops himself. I can see the restraint in his eyes. What has caused him to become so untrusting of others, so insecure? Till later. November 18th, 1892, Friday. Dear Diary, I'm setting off to Sensei's house. He's leaving for an event, quite the rare occasion, and has asked me to look over his wife. I have to leave now. Wish me luck.